Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hey, everyone.
Hello. Welcome. It's Kath here and
Sarah. And I think I'm looking through who's online right now. I think most of you guys know us, but in case you don't, in case you stumbled upon this crowdcast somehow, which could happen. I'm Sarah from Sarah Moon & Co. And Kath, who are you?
I'm Kath from Kath O'Malley, but I also am part of Team Sarah Moon & Co.
And together we do a whole bunch of different things. We do website design together, and we also run a marketing membership together, and then also run some seminars, workshops every month together. And then we also do these monthly Ask Me Anythings about different topics. And they're really fun for us, to be honest, because it's very unstructured. It's your chance to ask us questions. We answer them. The format of this is super informal. There's not like a pitch or a presentation or anything like that. Like, that's a lot of work, real talk.
Yeah, pitching and presentations are a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, aside from that, like, how many of you guys, like, raise your hand, have signed up for like a cool free thing, and then the whole thing was selling you something? I know I haven't. It drives me crazy, so I don't do that. And so we pick a theme most months. Sometimes we just are like, hey, come with your questions about whatever. I mean, we can have it between us. We have a pretty broad range of stuff we can cover. But this particular month, we wanted to focus in on search engine optimization. This is something that we get a lot of questions about, because I think it's a very buzzy topic. It's oftentimes people get approached sort of cold, emails and such from random companies, what have you, and they are pitching various services. Sometimes they can be quite expensive. And we wanted to kind of give you guys a chance to get some of these questions answered. We do a lot of work in this area, and Kath and I think have a very similar ethos that we aren't trying to create quick fixes for our clients in that regard. And in fact, I would argue that quick fixes aren't actually going to last you that long, and they're not going to be very sustainable. And so then what it does is it creates this cycle. You're constantly having to invest in search. And it's like, at that point, like, why not just buy ads?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, getting down to brass tacks, it's like, well, you're constantly kind of playing a game of whack-a-mole to try to stay ahead, whereas you can take some approaches that are a little more thoughtful and also will serve you in multiple ways. And that's philosophically, the other thing that I see as problematic in the way a lot of folks do search is they do search in a silo. So it's, well, here's my SEO campaign, but it's not connected to your content marketing. It's not connected to your conversion optimizations. It's not connected to, your overall brand, to be quite honest.
Right.
And I think that's immensely problematic. And because then it's, again, you don't have a really nice, synced up, marketing strategy that continues to move you forward and also serves an evergreen role. I have a lot to say about that.
So what do you mean by, I'm just going to be like a student here.
Sorry.
What do you mean by an evergreen role in terms of SEO?
So if I create, most of my search strategy for my own personal website is, for my business website, is focused around my blog, because for me, it's the easiest thing to really be like, I want to target a person. So I invent a person who has this problem that I know I can solve.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things that go into identifying the correct words, identifying your keywords, that sort of thing. But if I create something like that, so for example, one of my favorite tricks is the FAQ blog post.
Yeah.
which we did a whole workshop on that in our membership. And that is a methodology to use to structure your content in a specific way that Google really likes. And it's previewed in Google in a specific way. So if I'm going to do all this work to like research the keywords, structure the post in a specific way, format it, I want that post to work for me. I want it to be out there doing work for a long time. So that means bringing in traffic. But what it also means is if I get a question from a client or a potential client, I want to be able to send them that post in order to continue a conversation. Or I want to be able to take a question from that Q&A type post and turn that into a whole blog post. Or I want to be able to take something from that and turn it into an Instagram post or a LinkedIn post. So I want to have that. I want to repurpose it, but I want it to do work for me for a long time.
So it's not just the SEO part. Like it's not just, you're writing this post specifically to bring in traffic as an SEO thing, but also for everything that you do in your business.
Exactly. I don't want to do that work and not have it do heavy lifting. That's the long and short of it.
I'm actually going to find your post while you're talking. So I
can see a whole lot of y'all are online. You should ask your SEO questions.
Ask your questions.
There are no stupid questions.
No. I have some questions. Well,
there's an ask a question button. Ask your questions. This is a judgment-free zone. Usually when we do these, we have like 11 questions before we ever log on. So
so feel free to ask your questions in that little ask a question button or in the chat. And while we're waiting for your questions, I've got some questions that I've written down. Okay. A big one that I get sometimes from my leads that write to me and they ask some questions, and you're the SEO person.
Yeah, team. But you have a really good head for the content side of it.
Oh, yeah. And I'm crazy about content. So I'll say to people, well, why don't you try blogging about X, Y, and Z? And they come back to me and go, I don't want to do it. So I don't want to write. So what can I do instead? I don't want to write blog posts for my website to bring in traffic. So what else should I do? Or
so
are you
going to
yell at me?
Well, first I'll yell at you. First I'll yell, and then I will take your hand and I will say, listen, so you have choices here. Is your issue with the actual act of writing, or is the issue that you don't enjoy creating content?
Okay, so the act of writing or don't enjoy. Okay, so if it's the act of writing, I can, as a teacher, give you all sorts of advice, like do a video and then transcribe it.
Right, and that's my thing. When I've had clients say, I hate writing, I'll be like, well, okay, so, but I see you're like really awesome at YouTube, or I see you in your Instagram stories telling great stories and giving people great information.
Right.
So in that case, the easiest solution is literally to take that video, or if you do podcasts or what have you, and you can do an automated transcription, clean it up, and then post that video on your blog with that transcript, maybe add some headings, and so it looks nice and tidy. And then you can have a really nicely optimized blog posts. And actually, a lot of times when you're doing a lot of talking, you actually are naturally bringing in keywords. So it can actually be easier for people than trying to figure out a way because I will often sort of talk. I leave voice memos for myself using the and Kath, but one of the apps I use actually will transcribe it as well. And
which
so
app
sometimes
is that?
It's the Bear app.
The Bear app. Okay.
Sometimes
cool.
I those are often a lot of my weekly newsletters start out that way because it's I'm walking my dog and I want to That's my whole thing. Poor Kath gets all these messages from me when I'm walking my dog.
So that was the issue. Like, so one issue is I don't like writing. It stresses me out. So you've got some solutions here.
Yeah, lots of solutions.
Or the other one is I don't have time. I don't have time to write content. I'm busy. I'm a busy person.
So if you're too busy, learn about batching.
Okay.
Which is literally just sitting down and like, instead of trying to find time, assign time and get a whole bunch done at once, which is kind of your MO, Kath.
Yeah.
And I tend to kind of pick away at things over time.
Right.
But then the other option, if you absolutely, for whatever reason, have this strong aversion to it, you can also choose to not do SEO. You can do pay-per-click. You can do, when we used to be able to go to places, you can do in-person networking. You can do, you can sponsor your trade association. You can do all kinds of things and to get the word out there. Just know that you probably won't be super high in Google rankings. And that's fine because you have an alternate plan.
Right.
And that's the thing.
Okay. All right. So Sarah, we have 5 questions now in the question box. I can read one out and then does word count per page have any effect on SEO rankings? And that is from, I believe, Brad from Boss Display.
It was Chris, Evan, and Brad. Hi, guys. And that, yes, it does. And thin content is a big deal. I tell people to avoid any page that's important on your website needs to have at least 600 words. If you want to be very aggressive with, say, a blog post, if you write a pillar post, which is, and basically think of it like an anchoring your content on your website, you want to look at, and don't freak out, do not freak out, just take a deep breath. You want to look at probably around 2,000 words for that blog post.
Which is doable if you have a list of questions, if you're digging through your
can
emails from leads, or you're looking at YouTube comments on your subject area.
And I know that sounds so extreme. And so that's, so where you want to really, so any content page, so anything that's important. So that's your homepage. Obviously, you don't want to have thin content on your homepage. Your about page, any kind of services page, anything like that. That's a very important, meaty page on your website. You want to have at least 600 words. You want to aim to have at least 75% of your website. This is the rule of thumb. I kind of, when I sit and do kind of back of envelope math, this is where I see the break point. At least 75% of your website needs to have strong content. Now, you will have pages with thin content. Your contact page will probably have thin content. You may have like a little info, like directions to our location. Like there are pages that will have thin content, and that's totally fine. But you just don't want to have a page that's important that you're trying to rank for be thin. The other side of that is also you can, in any platform you're using, whether you're using WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or Webflow, you can also tell your content management system, so your website platform, not to show certain pages to Google. Right. So keep that in mind too, because if you say have a page of like your privacy policy or like a whole random page of testimonials or anything that's just not really contextual, you can just say, hey, Google, don't do this. Don't index this. And that's fine too. Not everything needs to be indexed. Not every page needs to be a search-based page. I have lots of pages on my website that don't serve that purpose.
Yeah, I was going to ask about hiding pages. And we have a follow-up question to this in the chat, I wanted to ask it for artists and people with big portfolios. How can you achieve this word count with a photography portfolio website? So, and I wanted to ask about art like Illustrator sites. Okay, so Sarah, so this is a good follow-up question, and then we'll go on to the next set of questions.
Well, I was just thinking of, with the photography example, that's a great one. It's a traditional artist portfolio. You go to the website and you have, usually you have like the name of the person and their navigation and a whole bunch of pictures. I mean, that's pretty much the standard the standard of the way those sites look. I actually don't necessarily think those pages in particular are giving people enough information anyway. So from just a straight up marketing standpoint. But Kath, I thought of that example of our client Johnny, who has quite a bit of content on his site. And I was going to just pause in the chat for you, Sue. This is an example of a photographer who took a very business forward approach to his website because he wants to be found. He's in a very competitive market. He wants to be found. And so he introduces what he does. So, this is the homepage, unique position. Then he talks about, a little bit more about what the problem is, how he solves the problem. And then there's different channels basically to get to the different types of photography that he does. And then he has a call to action. And following that flow, very quickly, you get to that 600 word count. I haven't checked his word count lately. He's always tinkering with those websites, so he could have changed it a little bit. But that's the reality, is that you need to rethink what that sort of portfolio site is. And if it's actually serving your ideal customers or your ideal clients. Portfolio websites oftentimes aren't that effective in terms of selling. And it's like, for example, if you're a surface designer, you can create a format on your homepage. For example, nice value statement about your approach to surface design. Maybe introduce who you are, because people want to work. They want to make a connection with a real person. Introduce who you are. Talk about maybe the different types of surfaces that you design for, with a little bit of blurb about each one. And then maybe a feed of your, portfolio items and a call to action. Well, all of a sudden you'll get to that word count on that homepage. And
also, like you say, it gives people a sense of what it's like to work for you, because they can dig deeper and see your portfolio items rather than having all of that on the homepage. It really says, oh, this person has a way of speaking that really relate to.
Because a lot of these services are pretty, like, you're pretty intensely connected when you're working with them. And so you want to get to know that person. And then the other side of it, to create some of that blog content, I'm a huge fan. If you don't if it's a little weird to be blogging, like, here's photography, here's advice for preparing for your photo shoot, that kind of stuff, do case studies. That can be a huge thing. And so it is that portfolio style, but instead of just having pictures, talk about where the shoot took place, because that can be huge actually in terms of search, because people have very specific ideas of where they want to have their photo taken or what have you. And so do it, write a case study, pick some of your favorite shoots and write about them and go into detail, because that's also so educational. So if you have someone else come to you who's like, well, I want to do a shoot at such and such place, you can be like, oh, let me show you that case study. You can see how that turns out. And that's a really great,
So it's a great, once again, it's back to, not
that
just
evergreen
SEO,
double duty.
Yeah. Double duty, triple duty, admin tool, marketing tool. All right.
Ooh. I can answer this one really quickly. The when titling images, do you use spaces between words or dashes? Don't use spaces. Use dashes or underscores.
I sometimes am lazy and I forget, so I'm glad you said that.
And honestly, if you forget to add the dashes or underscores and it's all smushed together, it's not that big a deal. But when you add spaces on old browsers, they will sometimes not show up, and that sucks.
Oh, you mean the pictures won't show up?
Literally, you get a corrupted image.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Huh. So yeah, underscores or dashes, both are fine.
All right.
Easy. Thanks, Jane, for the simple question.
It seems like keywords are okay, this is from Kate. It seems like keywords are supposed to be hidden in every page of our website. Is there an easy way to figure out where to put them, like a checklist?
So that is a more for blogs, the ideal word count for blogs, minimum of 600 words. And then if you really want to have something serve as what's called a pillar post. And Kath, do you have any content on your blog about pillar posts? I can't remember. If there is, we'll send it out.
You keep chatting and I will look.
Yeah. And then but if you want something to serve as a pillar post, you're looking at 2,000 words. So.
Which is like your main post.
That's like if you're like, I am going to write the definitive guide to, I'm trying to think of, I'm looking through the, scanning through who's online to create a good example. the definitive guide to immersive museum displays or something like that.
And it would just be this massive who, what, where, when, and why.
Who, what, when, where, why, current trends, like this very authoritative. And that's the thing that is the other piece of SEO too. I should have brought my little graph that explains this. That you are ultimately trying to build authority for your website. So the folks we work with, and I know who a lot of you all are who are on here you are in niche businesses. You're not selling widgets. And really the easiest way to continually have good, solid business is by being perceived as the authority in your field. And the place to start is, really good quality content. I can talk about authority businesses forever because it's pretty interesting. So anyway, back to Kate's question. It seems like keywords are supposed to be hidden in every page of our website. Is there an easy way to figure out where to put them, like a checklist? Well, I am working on a checklist for our keyword research workshop. So it doesn't exist right now, but that is something that will exist for that workshop. But the thing to think about with where to put keywords, the word hidden is a little bit of a misnomer because in fact, you want them to be public. And back in the day, a long, long time ago, there was a practice where basically you sort of you sprinkle keywords in wherever, and Google wasn't very smart, and so it just pulled things out.
Yeah.
And now Google actually wants you to be pretty obvious about what the keywords are. So here's my quick rundown of where to put your keyword. So on each page, you want to target a specific keyword or phrase. So when I say keyword, I don't mean a single word. A keyword can be a single word. It can be a phrase. It can be a question. It's basically a string of query. It's a query that someone would make to Google. So I might Google, bears, but I might also Google how to avoid being eaten by a bear, or what is the best bear spray, or should I buy bear bells for my dog? I mean, there's a lot of, or I might Google bears in Alaska. So those are all considered, each of those are considered keywords, even though sometimes they're a single keyword, sometimes they're a question, sometimes they're a long phrase. Right. I don't know where I came up with that random example.
Well, you were talking about the bear app. Maybe it's bears are in
my brain. So those are all keywords. And in those, and each you want to map, which is a fancy way of saying choose which keyword you will target on which page or post. And so when you go to think about what your keywords may be, you want to be like, all right, so on my homepage, I'm going to have the most general, that's not really a good way of saying it, but the most sort of broad, I guess, keyword that is associated with my website. That's what I'm going to target. Or maybe I want to target the location that I'm in if you are a local business or what have you. It very much depends site to site what keywords you choose. On your, say, services page, you might choose, if you are a business attorney who only handles trademark registrations, you would want to be like trademark registration services would probably in Boulder, Colorado would be the keyword that you would target. So there's lots of, like I said, you want to pick the keyword for the page. And I am emphasizing this because that is actually something people don't do. It is actually one of the biggest mistakes I see is there is no strategic approach to being, I am going to target this keyword for this page or this post. It's almost like an afterthought. And so if you do it at the beginning, it'll make your life easier. So then you want to make sure that keyword is in your SEO page title or your title tag, depending on the system you're using, because every single one of them is different. And they use different lingo because the internet is dumb. It so hard.
So your
I know
title.
A lot of you are Squarespace users, so that would be in that SEO panel on your page. Yeah. If you're using Yoast, it says title tag. And so you obviously want to have that keyword be there. So that's in the back end. The description, the SEO description, which again has lots of different names, that needs to also include the keyword. But remember, the description is for people. The title tag is for Google. So Google is really focusing on that description and then on the title, and the description is what prompts someone to click. So that really needs to be in conversational, natural language. The title.
When you say the description, like if I'm Googling, it's that little blurb underneath
under the Google results.
Yeah. So you want to say that, learn more about blah, 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 click here kind of thing.
And right? What I see people do, I just saw this last week. I see people do this where they'll just write a string of keywords in that description. That is worse than not having a description at all. You will get penalized for that. Don't do it. Absolutely never do it. And if you made that mistake, I'm not judging you, because there's still content out there that tells you to do that, and it's BS. Do not do that. Sorry, I just got really worked up there. You also want to make sure that you are including that key phrase in your header 1. That heading 1 on your actual page. Yeah. You need to have. So if I'm that lawyer in Boulder who does trademark services, I want to say trademark services in Boulder needs to be in that header 1. Now I can have a whole sentence. I can use marketing language, but I want to weave that keyword into that header 1. I would like to also see that keyword be in other headers on your page. If I were to be very dogmatic, I would say it should be in every header, but I think that's actually really hard to do and kind of stupid. It doesn't sound good. It diminishes your brand. So I play it a little loose personally, and I tend to recommend that clients are cognizant of that humans are actually reading their website. Mm-hmm. And so that's just something to keep in mind. You also want to have it in the content of your site, of your page. But that's where you can, again, use some good judgment. You don't want to stuff your keywords in there. You don't want to sound like a robot. Again, Google will actually ding you for that. So it's very much, this is where, it's very much a qualitative type decision, or it's very, subjective. And that's where you want to kind of read it out loud and make sure it sounds natural. Right. And you can get really granular and talk more. If I'm writing, say, an FAQ blog post, for example, I'm going to have my keyword in my title, in my SEO title. I'm going to have it in my intro. I'm going to have it in most of my questions and answers, because I'm targeting a very specific type of content. And I know that that is more likely to bubble up to the top if I do that. But that's that's a very specific, like, aggressive strategy for a very specific type of content. But just to repeat, SEO title, SEO description, header 1 are your must-haves. Like, absolute. You want to weave that into the body and other headers as appropriate.
In a natural way.
In a natural way.
Sue, and I'm not sure if you'll remember, she wants to know, what was it you said to avoid? Stuffing, I think? Yeah,
don't just jam a bunch of keywords.
Yeah. All right.
That you'll get penalized. Google can slap you pretty nastily.
All right. Well, here we have the next question from Brad. Okay. Are there benefits to making your own sitemap versus the ones generated from Squarespace or WordPress?
No. There used to be, but it's not anymore. And in fact, it won't do you any good, except if you have a very complex site and you want to do that for humans. But it's not going to give you any Google benefits.
Right. Then I had copied and pasted that question, so you can skip that one from me. And the ideal word count from blogs, we answered that one. So, okay, the next one from Joanna is SEO on Squarespace. Yay or nay? Can you rely on the built-in SEO? Is there work to be done and maintained on the back end? Or are keywords blogging the thing to focus on? It's a long question, but I've gotten lots of conflicting info, which I think is normal, conflicting info.
Yeah, I know it is. It is. And reality, so this is something I want to kind of back up and say. SEO is presented like a hard and fast, factual based science. I will die on the hill that it's also very much an art that has a lot of being sure that you understand your audience and what their needs are, what their intention is, a whole bunch of stuff. And so when you read a lot of the articles out there, they're presented like fact, but in fact, they are very much opinion. Mine are opinion. Now, I base my opinions on the experiences I've had, the different things I've tried, different trends I've seen. But in reality, they are very much my opinion as to the right way to do things. Is that bad that I say that, Kath?
No, I don't think so.
Do I hear kittens?
You do. I'm sorry. I'm going to go and see what the problem is. I'll be right back. Keep talking. Just a minute.
Show us the kitten. And so in reality, SEO on Squarespace. I had my site on Squarespace for many, many, many years. Kath has her site on Squarespace now. Kath has many what are called featured snippets. So that's the little when you Google and you see that box that's highlighted at the top that shows like this is the answer to this query you have. And that's all on Squarespace. And you can take see guys, kittens. I told you.
I'm sorry.
You got it. I mean, you came for the answers, but you stayed for the kitten.
For the kitten, yeah.
We should just put on all our promo stuff. There will be kittens.
There will be kittens and cat videos. Laugh out loud as LOL cats.
So anyway, so sites can rank well regardless of platform. Right. There are certain templates in Squarespace that I do not recommend because the SEO is a mess. So basically in Squarespace 7.0, the template family that I do recommend is the Brine family. And there's a whole bunch of them. There's like Brine and Mojave and I don't even remember all the names of
Rally.
them.
I know a lot. Sonora.
There's a ton of them. They're all the same template. Use that. Don't use any of the other ones.
And they're hard to find now. I think Squarespace is really moving more towards 7.1 anyway, which is, I think, a variant of Brine. Like
it's kind of, In 7.1, there's only one template, so use that. There are some nice new search features in 7.1 in the sense that we now have a heading 4. Yeah. There's some other just nice things that make it easier to not make common mistakes. Where I see a lot of problems with Squarespace sites is people follow Squarespace, their actual templates, the way they have their demo content. They often are using headers incorrectly in their demo content. People follow that and then they're like, why is my site not ranking? And it's like, well, the demo content you followed was done incorrectly. So I really am platform agnostic. I see people rank well. I've seen people rank well with blogger blogs. So, I mean, let's like real talk. It's really all in using keywords appropriately. Squarespace does have some, can you give an example of, I'm sorry, Sue, what did you want an example of in Squarespace?
I'm just getting,
I think I would focus on getting your keywords properly woven into your site. And then really focus on then developing your first content cluster, which is a whole other topic that isn't our next AMA next month? Isn't it about business blogging?
Let me just double check. I can never remember anything.
We'll probably talk more about that later. But content cluster is basically a group of pieces of content that are related to the same topic.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it basically boosts your authority overall for that topic. So that's what I would work on. But yeah, you can rank well. So where Squarespace, where it doesn't work well. I'm just looking at the questions.
Where SEO doesn't work well, maybe? Do you mean?
So I think I know what you're talking about. So the template, so some of the Squarespace templates, for example, just have like a picture on the homepage. That is terrible for SEO. Don't do that. There's another one. There's one template from 7.1. One of the demo content is like literally about 200 or 300 words, all header ones. And so basically it looks like you're screaming at Google a whole bunch of random phrases that have nothing to do with your topic. And so that's where I have some bones to pick with the way Squarespace sets up their demo content.
In other words, it looks beautiful or it looks gorgeous, right, but it doesn't, it's breaking some rules of Google, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip the one about keywords and I'll come back to it.
Yeah. So
I want to answer this quick
was just asking how long will 7.0 be supported. Squarespace is going to keep supporting,
Indefinitely.
But you can definitely email them. What I'm personally waiting for is a migration between 7.0 and 7.1 because I'm on 7.0 in the Brine family of templates. And I would like to go to 7.1. I kind of am getting used to it and liking it more. But it would be really hard to migrate right now with all the blog posts.
Yeah,
so I'm not
you have
doing
so much content.
Yeah.
But yeah, they still support, there's still sites on Squarespace 5.0 that is very, and that's from, I mean, that was last publicly available 8 years ago.
So no, they're still supporting it. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Question. We have one here. How do you know what keyword your client is searching for? You may use a keyword that your client has no idea is the right word for the service that they need. I have thoughts on this on the content side, but I'll let you answer
I want to hear your content thoughts.
So, I mean, this has come up with some clients before. I'm really about using the language. Oh gosh, I wish I could think of the example. Sometimes coaching language is, like I'm like people.
Oh yeah, that's a great example. That. People don't know what that is.
I can give a religious example if that's okay. I was talking to someone who was writing, religious, blog posts. And I can't remember what their term was off the top of my head. But it was something I would never have Googled it. And it was, but they were basically answering the question, why doesn't God answer my prayers? Basically. But that wasn't the word they were using. And I said, well, why don't you write the post? Why isn't your keyword? Why don't you make your keyword? Why doesn't God answer my prayers? And then you can weave in this term, which unfortunately I can't remember, but you can weave in the term into the blog post and explain the meaning of the term later. But like your title, the intro, all of that should be, why doesn't God answer my prayers? Because that's what people are going to Google, right?
Right.
So that was one example. I've seen a lot of examples where people are very resistant to using the words that their readers are actually using online because it's incorrect. It's I think the word homeless versus unhoused.
Yes.
I know that that's changing, and maybe in the future you won't need to. But I think that sometimes it's okay to use, as long as they're not offensive, obviously, words that people are going to be Googling and then explaining the new terminology.
And then define the terms.
Yeah.
And that's something I find myself doing a lot is targeting the words I know people are using and being like, so you think this means this, but let's talk about this other thing.
Yeah.
In terms of finding those words that people are searching for. So this is my methodology in a nutshell. So this is very top level. This is not a deep dive because that would take an hour. And so in a nutshell, what I do is first of all, I use pencil and paper first to start with. And I actually just do some brainstorming of concepts or phrases or questions. And I will pull those out of, if they're for myself, I'll pull them out of my email. I will pull them out of, I will actually do some Google searches myself. Like I'll kind of imagine if I know nothing, I will do some searches and I'm not looking at volume. I'm not looking at any of that stuff. I'm just coming up. I'm basically creating, it's like seeding basically some ideas for myself. I will look online at YouTube comments are a good one. Reddit is a treasure trove.
You have to sort of.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of accessible, but you can find really good basic questions people are asking the internet. And then there's also a Chrome extension called Keywords Everywhere that'll show you people also searched. And that's a really useful place to start. So I just start making a list of all of my ideas, and then I cluster them sort of thematically. So I'm trying to come up with kind of chunks of content. Chunks of keywords. And then that's what I'll go to. I actually use Moz, but it pulls from Keyword Planner. So Keyword Planner is the free option. And I'll start typing in some of those phrases and looking at what the volume, so that's how often it's searched, is. And a lot of times I'm encouraging my clients to look at smaller volume searches that are really what I call high intention. So that's where the person's, you can tell that the person is ready to make a decision. They're not sort of trying to they're not in the learning phase. And that's something that is important. An important thing to do is understand, and you can have different sort of point in their journey for different pieces of your parts of your website too.
Yeah.
I have parts of my website that are really for someone who's just kind of figuring out what I need. Yeah. Should I use this platform? Should I, they're in and then I have content that's for someone who's ready. And I want all of those people, because ultimately my endpoint is I want people to sign up for my newsletter, and I want to have a diversity of journeys on my newsletter, on my email list. That's a whole other topic for another day. But so I will start looking those up and finding, and then what you'll start seeing is other keywords as well that are searched in Google Keyword Planner. And so I'll start picking those out. And at that point I go to a spreadsheet and I start dumping them into a spreadsheet and getting them organized. But it is honestly, a lot of it is judgment. It's one of my favorite examples is one of my really fabulous clients is a social media coach. And there's a ton of people out there doing that. And he was having a hard time ranking for it. So we targeted as his most highest value keyword, social media coaching packages. Having that delineation, that where it shows an intention that it's someone who's actually wants to know how much is this going to cost.
Yeah. That
person who's at that point, they're actually probably more ready than the person searching for social media coaching.
Yeah.
Because that person is probably starting to is just thinking oh, I kind of need to get my act together with social media. Da, da, da. That person who's also wants to really hone in what's involved, how much am I going to pay, da, 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 da. So we targeted packages, and that has brought him literally so many high intention leads, because they're people who are ready.
I can't tell you how cool I find that, because it really does think about where the audience is at the point of coming to your website. And it's, even if he has fewer people landing on his website because of that term, it's so much more effective.
They are more people. Yeah. That's the thing, because it's fine. People come, they see, they're okay, cool, and they leave. That's fine. I'm not going to fret about that. But if you have more people coming, if you have a higher percentage of people who come to your site who are ready for what you are offering, that audience is so much more open. So they may read more on your blog. They might sign up for your newsletter. They might bookmark your site and come back to it. So there's a whole bunch of behaviors they may do that the person who has the more vague idea in mind is not going to do. And for the vast majority of people that we work with, people who are in our membership, people who take our workshops, they don't need that many clients and customers. Like they're either working on very big, large scale projects, so they maybe only need 3 clients a year, or they're working on smaller one-on-one services, but they may only need 3 clients a month. Right. You know, these are not impulse buy type services. So I like to focus on those for those people. For people who do have more like low cost, low dollar offerings, you know, I really think there's merit in also being very focused, because again, those people are more likely to make an impulse buy. So I'm again not really seeing the downside of
really targeted, thoughtful keywords.
Yeah, it's like if I'm selling sneakers that are made of recycled material, I would, probably target eco-conscious sneakers, not like comfortable running shoes. Because the person looking for, it's going to be such an easier sell for someone. If I'm searching for like eco-conscious running shoes, I'm going to be much more likely to keep them in mind than the person who needs to be convinced that they need eco-conscious running shoes.
Right.
I like easy.
Me too. Easy. All right, some more questions. In the Keywords Everywhere extension, a lot of times simple phrases I search come up with 0 searches a month. They seem pretty basic to me. Should I not use these phrases since nobody's searching them? That's from Nora.
Nora, if you could drop an example in there, I would love to answer that question in more depth.
Okay.
So let's come back to that one.
All right. I have a client who wants to start with one image as a landing page for a charity, like a cover page. Is this a bad idea? This is a yes or no. Yes.
I mean, so it's not a yes or no.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
Are they wanting to bring in organic traffic would be the question that I'd ask them.
Okay.
Maybe they don't care. Maybe they have a captive audience already who knows about them, likes them, supports them, and they don't need to have people finding them. That's fine.
And that's actually part of SEO, isn't it? Is knowing whether or not you actually need SEO, right?
Yeah, if it's a new charity, okay, I see a follow-up. It's a new charity. Yeah, they need to tell people what they do and who they are.
Yeah.
And have an email newsletter sign up too, just to throw that out there.
All right, another question.
Nora followed up. Squarespace coaching website. That's interesting. I'm going to look that up for you right now.
Squarespace coaching website. I'm targeting coaches for website design.
That's fascinating.
Squarespace websites for coaches? I'm
looking it up right now.
Squarespace websites for coaches. They've got for photographers.
Yeah, you're right. It has basically no monthly volume, which is really interesting. So interesting.
Best executive coaching websites.
So that's always interesting because I wonder what the thinking is of the Nora, I would feel that way too. Nora said that she feels like she's chasing her tail. That's a really interesting. I honestly wonder if you are going a little too narrow, might be my thought. And while you can use Squarespace as the qualifier, so you can include Squarespace and you're not going to cannibalize yourself. But I wonder if you're, if literally you're going with too narrow of keyword, and there probably are searches, like it's not that when you see that 0 volume, that doesn't necessarily mean that no one is searching. It just means that it's not enough for it to be logged. So it's possible it's too narrow of keyword. I'm actually surprised by that. But we're all very much in the online marketing world, and so we see terms like that. it's less common for, yeah, that's interesting. Fascinating. Yeah, because there's about 10 if it's, the volume is about 10 if it's websites for coaches. I think it might be going too narrow. And keep using the Squarespace term, but I think that might be part of the problem, is it's just simply too narrow. What do you think, Kath?
Yeah, I'm going to confess that I often see 0 or very low volume, and I still write it anyway, though. So that if people reach out to me, I have an answer for them. Like, so if you want to get coaches, maybe your static pages, your main pages, not your blog, is a little bit more broad, a broader keyword phrase. But you can start writing some posts and case studies on Squarespace for coaches. And then when people reach out to you, you have some examples.
And people are searching it. Like, because I got some related terms too. Like, one of them is website packages for coaches. And what is the best website builder for a coach?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's some good.
Yeah. So I think what I suspect is that maybe they're not even really thinking of platforms. And I've worked with a handful of coaches, not a ton. And I know, like, we've got a couple of coaches in our membership, and I don't think any of those folks actually think about their platform.
More ease of use, maybe.
Yes,
like they want to focus on their business and not have to worry too much about.
I think they're thinking ease of use, and so that's, I mean. But there are some interesting, that website packages for coaches. That's kind of an interesting one that came up. Best website builder for coaches. So there are some terms around that people are searching for, but I think it's too narrow.
I would ask, if you've got some clients that are coaches, I would ask them what they Googled and see if they remember, because you'll be surprised, and that will help you, lead you in a direction of finding words that you might want to put on your website.
Yeah, I think you've got an interesting problem. It's not even a problem. I think what it is you may need to also, just because also a lot of those folks, they're people. Like, they're talking to other humans. Like, they're not really, they don't want to be, they're maybe on Instagram, but they don't want to be fussed with, like, learning what all this tech is. So it could very well be they're just like, I need someone who's done a website for a coach.
Yeah.
Like, how much does a website for a coach cost? Like, what's the cost budget for a typical coaching website? So there's things that they may be searching for that
they might not even be typing coach. Like, they might just be
they may not be. They may just want a beautiful website.
Yeah, they might be actually looking at words like gorgeous website, elegant website, beautiful website. So think more about that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I think I would ask some people and go back to the drawing board with your sort of like seeding your words, because I think you're obviously, you want to get them in, and then you can present like, and I am the best at doing sites for coaches, and here's why, and like really getting them to understand what makes a good coaching website. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. We have another one from Boss Display here. Google is telling us that our webpage SEO is bad because we have videos in the banner. Any advice? Google. Google.
I'm gonna look at your site real quick. You just have that background video. It's fine. I would add more text to your homepage. That's my advice. I think that it's possible the video is slowing you down a little bit. And so if that's, so it sounds like it's slowing you down. So if that's the case, I would compress the video. There is a free app called, what is it? Handbrake, Kath?
Yeah, I think it's Handbrake.
Handbrake.
It has the pineapple. It's got a really cheesy old logo.
Yes, it looks totally hokey.
Okay, let me find it for you while you're talking. Handbrake.
Yes. So I would compress that video. And that's likely the problem with this loading speed. I would also look at your homepage and beef up the content. And and focus on that as well. You have a lot of imagery in general on your homepage. So I would also look at dropping those photos into, there's one of my favorite, Kath, if you could grab this one too. Short Pixel is one of my favorite apps for compressing images. You just drop them in there and it pukes them back out. That's what it feels like to me. I'm sorry.
And it has a nicer logo.
Yeah, and I would compress the images on your home. I would actually compress your images in general to also just kind of make up for that media lagginess. But I suspect it's not the video being just needs some compression, and that'll help you out. But add some content to your homepage and update your copyright year on your footer.
Is that an SEO thing, by the way?
Oh, that's just a thing that drives me crazy.
All right, we have Faria, your favorite tools, app, or software. Do you mean for SEO?
For SEO?
Probably for SEO. Well, I know you do. You have Moz, which is pretty amazing. I use
Moz, and I love it, and it's so stupid expensive. So I always feel badly recommending it because it is expensive. But it's the reason I suck it up and pay for it is, one, because I'm a professional and I can write that off. Two, it gives me all the things I need so I can do like a technical audit, which is really, haven't had any questions about this much, but basically making sure you don't have errors on your website, which are common. If you've had a website for a while, you've probably screwed something up. It happens. It allows you to analyze if you are targeting a keyword on a page. It allows you to put that page URL into it, and it'll tell you how you're doing. And it also has some really cool features, which is called, it has SERP recommendations. So basically it gives you some recommendations for paid potential, content that you could perform well for. So it's got a lot. Plus it has a really great keyword filtering tool that I find a lot easier to use than some of the ones out there. So one of my favorite things I like to do is filter by our questions, because I find that I learn a lot more from questions people are asking Google than just about anything else. And so that's why I suck it up and pay the stupid price for it.
What's the price? Or you don't want to say?
It's like $100 a month. It's really expensive. Yeah. And I'm on the lowest tier.
That's the lowest tier. Okay. All right. Because I mean, I know you have an SEO package that you offer, and so that you use that tool. So I think if you're using the tool.
Yes. So I'm using it, and I'm using it for our web design projects. I use it. And so for me, it saves so much time because I have this nice, easy to use all-in-one tool. There's Keywords Everywhere, which I think Kath dropped the link in. You can buy credits. You can spend like $10 and get, I don't even know how many keywords you can get. But it's real. What I really like about Keywords Everywhere is actually the keywords that aren't just in the Google searches, but you can get them on like YouTube. And so you sometimes can find a little different things. You can even get them on Amazon and Etsy. So if you're a product-based person, you can kind of snoop on keywords. SpyFu is a really fun tool. They have a free tier where you can get a bit of info, and it's often plenty for most people. So you can plunk your competitor in there and see what keywords they're ranking for, and it's awesome.
So I've got, and I added Answer the Public. That one's always fun, and they do questions for you, which is kind of, again, I'm a big fan of the questions. I don't know if it's because of the writing part that I like so much, but it really helps me think of ideas. I think it shows a lot
more intention. I actually think frankly, I think they are much, much more informative. If you are very clear on your audience, you can get more out of searching for the questions people ask Google than just searching for the plain old keywords.
Right.
That's my 2 cents.
So that's all the questions. I wanted to really quickly ask you, because we're right at the 12:30 mark, but 2 minutes. Google My Business. Do we need it as a SEO thing, or your thoughts?
So Google says that you do not need Google My Business to perform well. if you are a local business, so if you have a specific service area, I would strongly recommend that you have a Google My Business page and you keep it up to date.
Okay.
I've had 2 clients who are attorneys who've gotten their Google My Business pages taken down because for reasons, and it has harmed their search rankings locally. So,
and you don't know why it got taken down and they never found out?
I have suspicions.
Oh.
I was gonna see if I had other app recommendations.
But it's not, if you're maintaining your website and doing content and keeping that healthy, if you don't have a Google My Business page and you're not necessarily a local business or just in one area, it's okay not to have one, is what you're saying.
It's okay. I mean, I have some real issues with Google My Business. I have a Google My Business page. It does help my performance locally in Portland. I'm actually not targeting local business at all. So that's less of, so it's less of a concern for me. Okay. I very rarely work with anyone local to me. But it does help.
Right.
My issue with Google My Business is, one, you own nothing of it at all. People can just submit changes. People can leave reviews if they've never even been a customer. That's pretty problematic. You have no recourse to have fraudulent reviews removed. It happens a lot. I know.
We had a bad situation where that happened to someone. Yeah.
And it's very, that can be very damaging to your reputation. The other thing is that Google does place ads. Competitors can place ads in your Google My Business listing.
Sorry,
so that's something else to just be aware of. So that can be frustrating. Fun, I know.
All right. Well, I just wanted to know, do we have any more questions before?
Last call
for a question. But thank you for coming.
While I'm giving you a couple minutes to ask any lingering questions. After this, if you couldn't watch all of the AMA, we do post these on YouTube after. So we'll send that out. We send out an email to everyone who participated. And you'll get that and some notes with some links that we mentioned. We always send out a little discount to whatever we have coming up next in that too, as a thank you. So if you want to join our keyword research workshop that's happening next week, don't join yet. Wait till you get the email with the discount.
And that usually comes out either like by the end of the day today.
By the end of the day, usually.
And sometimes tomorrow morning, but usually today.
And
we just have to wrap things up.
I know.
So we do have one final quick question. As a newbie, what is the priority?
Get your page titles and descriptions into your site, and then start working on weaving in your keywords into your headings. And then next, after that, start working on your first content cluster.
Yeah.
Boom.
So that means your blog, like what the things you're going to blog about. But a very
thoughtful, intentional blog. Yeah.
All right.
That's what I would do.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.